The information I'm about to provide you will alter your perspective on XRP forever. A collision between the public markets and what's going behind the scenes is about to happen, and most people have no clue about it. It will surprise even the most ardent believers in this arena. The personal side of this narrative is something I've witnessed firsthand. The hidden ledgers, records, and pricing that never make it to the public markets have all been revealed to me. You won't believe how near we are to turning a corner until I give you the figures. Do not consider this financial advice. Allow me to explain. A letter, a real correspondence from the Thai government, in which Ripple was involved, surfaced not long ago. This was no urban legend. In this letter, Ripple argues that the Thai government should use XRP on both the public and private ledgers rather than relying just on the public ledger. Ripple essentially detailed their use of private sidechains and their advantages in that document. Now we reach the pivotal moment. In contrast to the public market, prices on the private ledger have reached unprecedented heights. I'm referring to the sidechains where prices like $327,000 per XRP pop up. Will XRP be trading publicly at that price tomorrow as a result of this? It doesn't work that way. The implication is that large organizations, governments, and businesses are using these sidechains as a proving ground for more extensive settlement simulations. Consider it in this way. Pressure testing the pipes in a newly constructed skyscraper is done to ensure that there are no leaks before the water is turned on. That is precisely the action that Ripple and its associates have taken. They're testing simulations of settlement volumes and demonstrations of the effects of XRP's large-scale adoption across borders, institutions, and new financial railroads have been impressive. Plus, that is only the beginning of the picture. Allow me to say something fast before I delve further. You must not miss what I have prepared if you wish to position yourself optimally for the impending tsunami of wealth transfer. Invest your way to millions is the name of the game. Discover 100x worth of stocks? You can find the link in the comment that has been pinned below this video. The included materials, papers, photographs, video breakdowns, and more will teach you how to recognize possibilities that can change your life and your family's financial fortunes for generations to come. Come on, let's focus on the here and now. The main issue is, why are these sidechains really necessary? Why not have them managed by an outside party? It would be more prudent to allow the market to determine the outcome. At Ripple Apex 2025 in Singapore, I had the good fortune to be present when the company itself provided the answer. An irritant for Ripple for a long time was finally answered by one of their leaders, Schwartzy, when he took the platform. I don't see why financial organizations can't just settle using the public XRP ledger DEX. It was a devastating response. He came right out and said that Ripple is a regulated organization that cannot afford to even slightly increase the likelihood that their payment rails could be compromised by an illicit transaction. Under regulatory guidelines, it is just off limits, regardless of how rare it is or how little their knowledge of it is. Because of this, the DEX in its public form has not been usable by institutions. The breakthrough, however, occurs at this point. Permission domains are currently being released by Ripple. In the XRP ledger ecosystem, these areas are private and governed. Subject to verification before admission, there must be no evidence that you are engaging in unlawful activities linked to terrorism or sanctioned. You can do everything from providing liquidity to consuming it once you're inside, and you can even engage in arbitrage between the two. Most crucially, the DEX is now available for use in payment settlements by corporations, banks, payment providers, and other entities. My dear reader, allow me to translate that into your own language. Large regulated financial institutions will have unprecedented access to XRP's potential on the blockchain. That was previously unimaginable. Consider the time now. As a team, Ripple and its partners have been patiently waiting, developing, testing, and getting ready for years. Legal certainty has always been the missing component. Organizations can't function without it. It is possible to have the world's quickest rails, the cheapest transactions, and the best technology. However, major participants will stay on the sidelines if the rules are inconsistent. That is the truth about XRP. But hold on a second. We are finally seeing that clarity. Currently, the Senate is debating the market structure bill, which establishes a transparent legislative framework for digital assets. Plus, it's not some far-fetched notion. Not even the notorious Bitcoin maximalist Senator Cynthia Lummis has indicated she doesn't think Donald Trump would sign this bill into law before Thanksgiving. If that occurs, which seems more probable than before, XRP will be classified as a commodity. Rely on that. Not a security, but a commodity. Institutions can open doors with that one definition. It takes away the last justification for not participating. What this implies is that the relevant parties, governments, banks, and payment processors are fully informed. We must now return to those domains that provide permission. Institutions will feel comfortable moving funds straight onto the XRP ledger once the legislation is finalized and official clarity is provided. Everything from sidechains and private ledgers to concealed testing and the public sphere comes together. Funds are flowing into the open market from hidden sources. At last, a large-scale settlement is within reach. Things start to heat up after that. Have you forgotten about those exorbitant test fees? Do you recall the private ledgers that were conducting simulations at levels that the public market has not even begun to fathom? Such were not haphazard. These experiments served as test beds for the potential of XRP in a global setting. The market will be forced to reevaluate prices once the gates open. We are not dealing with your average pump and hype cycle. The structure is there, everything is interconnected. Here, two realms come together. Separate from the open realm of retail trading is the shadowy realm of institutional testing. There has never been a liquidity shock like it when they meet. We have finally broken through. Conventional financial wisdom has been resistant to deviation off the path for quite some time. Everyone has done everything they can to keep the legacy system in place. But now we're at the harmony phase when old ways of doing things and cutting-edge electronics eventually mesh. For over 10 years, Ripple has been getting ready for this very second. The institutions are prepared, the permission domains are operational, and the law will soon be clear. That is why I think we are on the cusp of a monumental shift. Unless they witness it firsthand, the majority of people will not believe it. Taking a step back and looking at the broader view helps to clarify Ripple's patience. They have been working on a system that rewires the very fabric of international banking, rather than only fixing a single little inefficiency. This is why they were unable to hurry it. For that reason, there have been covert simulations, private ledgers, side chains, and years of covert testing. Those astronomical figures were never meant to be seen by the average investor. Making sure the system was foolproof for when the time came was the main concern. Consider the scenario in which XRP is listed on a private ledger with a price in the hundreds of thousands. It seems illogical at first. In a market where all that's shown is dollars, why would it ever reveal them? It all makes sense when you realize that those private chains are actually modeling settlement volumes in the trillions of dollars. Extreme situations are being used to stress test liquidity. They are demonstrating the potential outcomes of XRP, serving as the foundation for instantaneous cross-border transfers of large sums of money. Now picture those identical flows making their way into the public ledger from behind the scenes. We are on the cusp of that true event. If public and private chains remained apart, arbitrage possibilities would typically arise. That being said, they are not going to. The boundaries between the public and private sectors begin to blur once authorization domains are up and running and institutions receive approval. What this means is that previously restricted flows are now part of the open market. The price discovery mechanism is given new vitality, order books are expanded, and liquidity is deepened. Everyone, not just institutions, stands to gain from this arrangement, which is its greatest strength. Even while others scoffed at XRP's potential as a bridge asset, the retail community has kept faith in it for years, but Ripple was aware of the reality. Institutional flows could not be unleashed until the regulations were defined. The regulations are finally on their way, which implies that utility at scale, the very thing that retail has believed in, is finally going to show up in the data. Fascinatingly, Ripple engineered its deployment to address compliance, a critical concern in the financial sector. A new sort of confidence in digital assets is what the permission domains are all about, not merely the creation of walled gardens. Pretend it's the security line at the airport. No one can just show up at the airport and expect to board an international aircraft. Passengers must first undergo screening and verification. When it comes to the transfer of digital assets, permission domains use the same logic. Institutions that cannot afford to take any risk benefit from the fact that everyone who enters has been thoroughly screened and is familiar with the regulations. This is when the power of the network becomes apparent. Other financial institutions will join the bandwagon once a few start supplying liquidity. When newer, better, and safer alternatives are available, banks would rather not be the last ones clinging to antiquated tracks. While their competitors are able to transfer funds immediately for pennies, payment providers are still burdened with wire fees and delays. They fear falling behind and losing out on business. There is a lot of pressure to change. Once the tipping point is reached, the change occurs quickly, as has been observed in every previous technological revolution. When put into reality, how does this appear? Just pretend for a second that a bank in Europe is interested in settling with a bank in Thailand. At the moment, that procedure is cumbersome. Transaction time, fees, and the number of middlemen all increase as a result. But with Ripple's protocol and XRP as the intermediary, the identical transfer may take place in a millisecond. Scalable proof of this was previously provided via the private ledger tests. Legal clarity eliminates the final hurdle, and authorization domains make it compliant. The flow is becoming tangible. When it begins, it continues indefinitely. But banks aren't the last victims. This solution is accessible to businesses of any size. Using Ripple's rails could result in huge savings for multinational firms that transfer billions of dollars monthly across borders. Because they are no longer burdened by traditional expenses and delays, even smaller enterprises who trade globally gain an advantage. Beyond that, remittance senders, freelancers, and the general public can all reap the benefits of international money transfers. The plot thickens at this point. Why? Because Ripple isn't limiting itself to a single application. A whole financial superhighway is being constructed. It can accommodate a wide variety of traffic once it is set down. Proceeds, agreements, assets that have been tokenized, and even whole marketplaces. Numerous applications exist on the XRP ledger beyond monetary transactions. There is value in every aspect of it. For that reason, establishments are paying closer attention than before. The importance of timing must also be considered. This is not an accident in any way. The environment wasn't conducive to Ripple's move for a long time. Authority figures were not in sync. Authorities were apprehensive. Conventional banking was unmotivated to change. However, things are starting to fall into place in 2025. Someone else's political paradigm has changed. There has been an increase in interest in blockchain innovations. The need for new financial infrastructure can no longer be disregarded. This change is being driven by the global economy. The inefficiencies of the previous system, along with the growing need for quicker settlement and the volumes of cross-border trade, are putting pressure on all parties involved. The government has seen the signs. These days, digital assets are a need. They're bound to happen. And Ripple was in the ideal spot to act as a link between the ancient and the modern. That's why those evaluation settings were crucial. They were necessary for Ripple to demonstrate that XRP could manage the workload. They demonstrated it, though. They proved that XRP has the potential to settle at levels unseen by the public market. And now that assurance will lead to adoption without a doubt. Everyone wants to know when the price will be reflected in it. To tell you the truth, price is the one that lags behind everything else. The infrastructure is of utmost importance. After that, there is the compliance framework. Adoption is the third option. When it happens, the asset's value starts to reflect it in the market. However, it will not be subtle when it occurs. An event of repricing will take place, for the simple reason that previously concealed, tested, and contained liquidity will burst forth into view. Such a change does not unfold gradually. The impact is sudden. And here is where the majority of individuals will be taken unawares. They will be led to believe that XRP appeared out of thin air, but in truth, it was a long time coming. There have been signs all over. Secret pricing, private ledgers, official correspondence, and the covert creation of permission domains. This was all predetermined. It was a dress rehearsal for the same setting we're going to be entering. Think about XRP's future after it gains formal commodity status. This eliminates the possibility of regulatory action. Financial institutions can confidently allocate their funds. Thus, there is no room for legal ambiguity when building investment vehicles, ETFs, derivatives, or structured products directly on top of XRP. The liquidity base immediately grows in size as a result. Also happening at the same time are the opening of previously closed payment routes. Markets that were hesitant finally get going. This isn't limited to just one area either, because to the worldwide scope of Ripple's collaborations, it's pervasive and simultaneous. Continents, Asia, Europe, America, and Africa. This isn't limited to just one nation. It's a real-time unfolding of global alignment. Now consider the magnitude. There is already too much demand for XRP on public marketplaces, even if only a small percentage of international settlements use it. There is a hard cap, unlike fiat currencies. XRP worth $100 billion, most of which is not yet accessible. The fundamental cause of price appreciation is the imbalance between supply and demand. Once the dam cracks, it will go into overdrive. Market psychology is the last component. When the story moves from conjecture to adoption, from ambiguity to clarity, everything changes. After initially stating, "We'll wait and see," institutions are now rushing to gain publicity. Individuals who invested with little faith in the timing are flooding back into the market. The media's attitude changes from doubt to excitement. The feedback loop then starts. When prices go up, people take notice, which leads to adoption, which drives up prices even more. That is why the legal clarity, authorization domains, and private ledgers should all be seen as a single narrative. They're not two distinct occurrences. They're all working together like a well-oiled machine that has been meticulously assembled over many years. The timing is impeccable, and Ripple planned it out perfectly. Presently, we find ourselves on the cusp of that change. We have tested the pipes, all of the holes have been filled. It is clear that the mechanism works. The authorities in charge are getting ready to turn the switch. The world of finance will undergo a radical transformation once they achieve this. In the end, what will happen when the walls fall? Everyone has been waiting for that inquiry. The reality is that we are beginning to perceive the solution materialize right now. The concept of authorization domains is not abstract. Here they are. There is no fanciful notion behind the regulatory framework. It is currently making its way through the corridors of power. The private testing that has taken place throughout the years is not insignificant. For this very time, they have been making preparations to the system. There are huge ramifications for the following stage, but it's easy to convey. The integration of private funds into open markets. There will be permanent changes to the supply-demand equation after that. All of the private ledger stress tests pointed to the same conclusion. XRP can manage a worldwide settlement of this magnitude. However, the price mechanism responds in real time as soon as that same scale begins to move across the public ledger. The repricing process starts at that point. Have this idea in mind. Private ledgers have served as a trial run. Everything is ready to go. The stage is set. The actors know their lines by heart, and the lighting is just so. The audience was the sole item that was absent. The stage is being set for a live performance, and the entire financial world will be watching. Furthermore, there is no way to stop it once it has begun. The XRP price changes to reflect its actual utility as the practiced liquidity plays out in real-time marketplaces. The most remarkable aspect of this change is the harmony that is developed among technology, regulations, and consumer desire. One part was consistently absent for a long time. The technology may have been prepared, but the regulations were not. The regulations may have been in the works, but no institutions showed any interest in them. Alternatively, the demand was there, but the rails were unable to meet it. All of those obstacles, however, are falling away simultaneously in the year 2025. It's as if, after years of turning in various directions, the gears finally click into place. All machines are now in sync. Because of this harmony, the time it will take for widespread adoption is shortening. Global governments, central banks, and payment firms have all established connections with Ripple. These collaborations are systemic, not local. Furthermore, entire industries get swept along with systemic players when they make the changeover. That's why it will have a domino effect rather than a slow acceptance. Think about the consequences of a single large central bank completely adopting Ripple's technology. There will be no denying the efficiency gains. Other national monetary authorities will be afraid to fall behind. Adoption is pushed upon them solely by the competition. And that tendency will trickle down to households, businesses, and commercial banks alike. The only questions now are when and how quickly. If is of the past. Now let me get to the point. When one domino falls, the markets move on. When the first few dominoes fall, they set their prices for the future. The market will start to anticipate the rest once institutions start transferring liquidity into authorization domains and clarity arrives. At that point, steam begins to boil. Additionally, XRP is now acknowledged as the foundation of a new worldwide payment system, rather than merely another digital asset. By that stage, the feedback loop has become very effective. Increases in liquidity are driven by growing adoption. Increased cash on hand boosts self-assurance. Greater adoption is attracted by assurance. This loop will continue until XRP is deeply ingrained in the world of international banking. Looking at the big picture, the implications for the entire financial system are more important than the XRP price alone. Our planet has been stuck on antiquated tracks for a long time. As a rule, there have been many tiers of fees, days-long settlement windows, correspondent banks, and swift messaging. However, that is going to change. In this new era, value may be transferred just as quickly and easily as data. Plus, XRP is marketed as the connecting asset that enables this to happen. That change will affect industries other than finance. Businesses, governments, and even regular people all have to adapt to new ways of dealing with money. Envision a society where money transfers that took days before could come in a matter of seconds. In a world where international transaction costs don't cripple small companies' ability to compete. In a world where money may move freely across oceans, opening doors that were previously inaccessible. Ripple has been working toward this very world, and now it's within grasp. Also, keep in mind that we're not limiting ourselves to the literal expression of monetary value. Any asset, currency, commodity, security, or even non-existent form of value can be tokenized and transferred using the XRP ledger. It follows that payments aren't the only area we're seeing an adoption curve for. This goes far beyond the tokenization of carbon credits, supply chains, and real estate. The demand for and supply of XRP increases in response to each of those use cases. For this reason, the private ledger pricing, which were startling at first glance, make perfect sense. The amount of settlement that XRP can support when used to its full capacity is reflected in their actions. That possibility goes from being a theoretical consideration to a tangible one now that the law is clear. Once the private market learns something, the public market starts to factor it into prices. This moment is of the utmost importance. Everyone is holding their breath for a digital asset that can be defined by regulators, supported at scale by technology, and trusted by institutions. There will be no denying the repricing event when the market learns that XRP is currently filling that role. Because they are stuck in the past, most people will fail to notice it. They will remember it as the token that was left hanging, awaiting adoption, clarification, and the outcome of lawsuits. That the litigation compelled Ripple to develop foolproof compliance procedures, that the delay allowed regulators to synchronize, and that the covert testing on private ledgers prepared the way for worldwide adoption is something they will never get. It will be well underway when the change becomes apparent. Being early is important for this reason. At the outset of both the ownership of an asset and the comprehension of its story, because if you wait until the story becomes inevitable, it will be too late to get in at the bottom. And there's no mistaking it. The storyline has changed. The institutions are forming a line, the parts are moving, and the rails are laid. We are going to witness the world's greatest ever liquidity transfer into digital assets. The focal point is XRP. The coming months are going to be pivotal. The stage is being set with the market structure law, institutions getting ready to onboard, and Ripple getting ready to unlock permission domains. The following step is not planning, but rather carrying out the plan. Someone has tipped the dominoes. How soon the remainder will fall is the only remaining question. Those who can see the big picture can start making plans right now. This isn't just a temporary upswing. It's the fundamental revaluation of an asset moving from a position of possibility to one of utility, from the periphery to the epicenter of international finance. The market will never be the same after the liquidity shock occurs. Those who are prepared to take action can find a straightforward method to merge insight with opportunity. The Ultimate Millionaire Investor Guide, Find 100x Stocks, is a potent resource with documents, photographs, and videos that may teach you to recognize exceptional possibilities before they burst. You can find it in the pinned comment below. Additionally, by utilizing my Robinhood link, you can receive free NVDA stocks with a mere $1 deposit. Just 2 easy steps. One provides the education, while the other introduces you to one of the world's most valuable resources at this very moment. That's the way to get ready for the future. Now is the time. Will you be prepared to flick the switch? That is the only question.